welcome to the channel. I am Summer. Today is another bob tutorial. This time we are doing a butterfly bob, taking two of my favorite haircuts, combining them into one. You're gonna get lots of shape, lots of movement, lots of texture with this haircut. We're gonna be stacking up the back a little bit more and just overall making this a really fun cut. With that being said, let's get started. Okay, we are gonna hop right in. This haircut on this mannequin currently is a bob that I did, I think like 3 or 4 videos ago. I will link it in the description below. And it was just a very classic, soft, more so one length bob. She had very little layers. We did a really soft face frame. So I'm gonna use her to create our bob butterfly, which is going to be so much fun. So you're gonna get lots of texture, lots of movement with this. I would say the cut I'm gonna be doing today is probably better suited for medium hair types, or even like coarser is fine, but fine, you would have to be a little bit careful with it. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it would need to be tweaked. So we are gonna come in first, and I'm gonna be doing some of the cutting very similar to like my old school original butterfly haircut I did. I don't even know how many years ago at this point. But I'm gonna be taking some of the same steps from that and applying it to this. So what I'm gonna do, you can see here she has just this very, very soft face frame, if you want to call this a bang. We're gonna first cut our bang face frame guide that's going to make up a lot of the haircut. So what I like to do to kind of figure out how much bang area I'm gonna take, I'll just comb down and take a look at it. So she's actually kind of a narrow forehead really. And I'm gonna separate it right here, which is sort of just at the arch of the eyebrow. You can go wider, but because this is a bob, I wanna make sure that I'm not jeopardizing anything here yet. I'd rather have more control for that after the fact. So we're basically at the arch of the eyebrow. We're gonna do the same on the other side. And just take that straight down. We're gonna comb the rest of this hair back. So it's like a nice little baby triangle. And so what this is going to do is going to set the guide for when we later go into our face frame and shaping it up. I am gonna be removing the length some because I want a little bit more stacking. The other haircut did not have any stacking really at all. So we are gonna come down. As you can see, she's got a little bit of a bang, but I'm gonna raise it up to just kind of a little bit underneath the nose. So a lot more length will be taken off right here on these pieces, but in that very dead center, not quite as much. So I'm gonna come in right at the center of our guide here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the wide side of my comb. She's shedding hair. And the reason I'm using the wide side is with the bangs, I don't wanna pull like super tight and really taunt here. I want to have some nice softness, so that way when they do dry, they're not shorter than what we anticipate. But I'm going to bring them right to just at that nose region. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to be combing out. I am not pulling this hair tight. I'm just letting it loosely follow with my comb. Gonna lower it there, and that looks about right to me. I might take it up shorter later, but for now I'll leave it. I'm just gonna cut. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our next section here and we are going to over direct it back to the center of the head. The way that I'm gonna be cutting a lot today is going to be a lot of over directing, bringing it back to the same point, which is considered a stationary guide. The back, we're gonna be doing more of like a classic standard haircut, but through the sides and in this front area is gonna be more of over directing and bringing it to the same point. And again, I'm just using the wide side of my comb. I'm not pulling really tight with my fingers. I'm keeping the hair nice and loose so I don't cut short, or it won't end up shorter, I should say. We're gonna let that fall. And it just creates a nice little curve on its own by over directing to that center point. I'm gonna bring this down, make sure that it's lining up nice. She needs just a little bit more right here. And that is good. So now that we have done that, this is gonna be a guide for later on the sides, but we are gonna actually move to the back. But first we're gonna do our sectioning. So for this, we're not doing traditional sectioning like I do where we separate at the ear and just clip everything forward. We're gonna come to the edge of the brow here. Let me turn her so you can see better. The edge of the brow and where the comb leaves the head. And where that comb leaves the head at the edge of this brow, we are gonna take a section and we're just gonna do a horseshoe parting all the way around the head. So I'm gonna do that again. I think I took it too low. So I'm just gonna come up just a little bit. It's technically like the apex, I believe this is what this is called. And you're just gonna follow that line to the back of the head, come back to the front, taking the parting at the parietal ridge where the comb leaves the head and connect it to the back. And then you're just gonna clip this up. I like to give it a good twist so I don't have any hairs poking out. And now we are going to separate our sides. So what I'm gonna do is where this is rounding out here, I'm just gonna come from that back and I'm gonna angle forward to the ear. So you've got an angle here. Same, I'm at this back corner here and just angling into that ear. And clip. So what we're gonna do is we are just gonna come in here down the middle and I'm going to cut my perimeter. We're only removing about, I don't know, ½ an inch maybe. And as I cut the length, we are going to be stacking the hair a little bit. Not a severe stack. We're not doing like the old school Victoria Beckham stack, just soft enough to kind of give it a little bit more lift. So I'm gonna have her look down at this point. And we're just gonna comb the hair down and just this last a little bit here, kind of where you have like this flip forming. And I'm going to be doing more of a point cut for my perimeter. I'm not doing any blunt, hard lines. I want this to be nice and soft. I'm gonna cut it just a tiny bit more because these little under hairs always love to poke out when you get the hair dry. They're like the bane of my existence. Okay, and now we're gonna let out our next section and we're gonna start slightly stacking that hair to create a little bit of lift here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in. I always start in the center here. We are going to pull the hair slightly out at an angle. You're not going at a hard like 90 straight from the head. You're just gonna lightly lift it up to create some shape. Make sure you can see through to your guide. This is probably a bigger section than I would suggest if you're a newbie, but I see my guide right in there and cut. So what this does is it creates just a little bit of elevation through the hair. And I find when you do just the light stacking, it does help create the look of more thickness. You get like a tighter, cleaner look as well. And it helps to add into that angled look, whether you can obviously make it super severe or you can keep it nice and soft like we're going to be doing today, but it helps create that line going down here. So we're drawing everything up in the back with the eye. So you're not gonna be dragging down your face. Things kind of go up with the eye when you have a light stack. So normally in salon, I cut standing completely behind the head, but because I don't wanna block my camera here, I have to turn her here so I'm even on both sides. We're gonna go next section. So that last section I feel like was a little thick. I mean, I could see through it, but I always tell people take small size sections. It is gonna always work out better. You can always see through to your guide. There's not gonna be any oops cutting. So just always take your time and take proper sections. You're not gonna get anywhere by rushing the haircut. So I easily see through to my guide here. Again, we're just gonna be pulling out slightly at an angle, nothing crazy, and cut. And I pull everything straight back. I am not really over directing. Like I said, the back I'm cutting pretty typical, where the front things are gonna get pulled to one set area often. But with this, I'm just pulling the hair straight back from the head. I'm not bringing it towards the center. I'm not bringing it out, just straight back. And then as you go, you can check your corners. Again, I'm leaving it a little longer here. Perfect. And then we're at this top layer of hair here. I see through to my guide, cut. And then after I get this done, I will check the length, make sure it's looking even on both sides, and then we'll start layering this back. So as you can see from the side view, I need to cut that a little bit, but it just creates this angle that starts to form. It's nothing too crazy. We're gonna come in and just slightly straighten that up a little bit because this is too long, but I just wanna give you that visual of that angle going forward, and that helps create pulling that eye up when you're looking at somebody from a side profile. You don't really ever want the back of the head, the back of the hair to be really, at least with a shorter bob cut, longer than the front. It just doesn't look right. Yep, got that little corner there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check it. Got some baby hairs hanging out here. This is why I like to sometimes just cut that underneath section shorter, because they always poke out. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to start layering this hair some, and I am actually gonna, I think, make it more stationary with our layers than rounded. So stationary, everything would be coming back to the center point, or if I do a traveling or rounded layer, it's really more so traveling, you're going around the head and everything's coming straight out from that point. And that is a traveling layer, where this, we're gonna kind of basically bring it all to the same point. So I'm gonna come right here in this middle, and I want you to think of this angle. Let me turn her a little bit more. I want you to think, when creating this layer, of a small triangle. So we're coming right in the center. We're pulling the hair straight out from the head, but instead of cutting straight up, I'm gonna angle my fingers here. So we're creating sort of a slight triangle. It's not an exact triangle, but you want to angle up from where it's shorter underneath into your top layer to just create some softness. So we're coming out, I'm angling, and you're just gonna cut up into that top section. I'm gonna grab this next hair, I'm gonna pull it back to the center and just do the same thing. So we're coming out, angling, cutting. And when you are doing a guide like this, you will run out of hair to cut. It's completely normal. We've just got these little top baby hairs, and we might not even have anything right in that top. So with a bob, when you're doing the back layers like this, where you bring it back to the stationary guide, it does still help to create that angled look because you're cutting a little bit shorter in the center and then they just flow down nice. So again, this comes back to the center. So we've got our guide down here essentially, and we're twisting our hands with it. So this is our short piece and we're just coming out to that top layer and cutting. So you have a very slight, soft angle. Over directing this back to the center. We have just that top little bit. Now, I will say the one thing when you're cutting more of a stationary guide like this, if you feel like, because sometimes it can just be a lot of hair to try to hold, you can go ahead and opt to section off the top. And I'll go in and show you this, and you'll probably see the difference actually where you get a cleaner cut. So we're gonna come in right in the center. Try not to block the camera. And you would just cut up. And then as you let out that next section, you would just continue to meet it from where this point is. So I'm just going through one more time, coming back to that center point and looking through. So what we're going to do at this point now, we've created a little bit shorter of a layer here. It's gonna create some nice bend and movement when we go to blow dry. And we are going to actually work our way into the sides now. So we did remove some length back here. So I'm gonna let out my side and I'm gonna take a look to see if we need to even it out anywhere. So as you can see, we have quite a bit of an angle here. I am gonna soften that up to blend this in. I need to remove this length here anyways because it's poking out, but I just wanna blend it in and lightly bring up the length here so it's not quite dramatic. I'm just gonna come in. We've got our hands going at an angle and then just cut what you need to. Come in. I came in from my longer point and up into that angle. And then now that we're into that side more, I'm gonna first keep it angled going down. And now I'm gonna square it out. So we still have this slight angle going on. We're gonna have nice roundness and shape when we go to dry it, but it created a little bit softer of a look. And I'm gonna first do that on the other side, and then I will show you how we're gonna start the butterfly aspect of this cut. Alrighty, so we have the sides are a little bit shorter, nothing crazy, but we're gonna come back to this original guide that we had for our bangs. So this is where I'm gonna be really going back to like my inspiration from my old school butterfly haircut. We are going to take a corner of our bang here, and I'm gonna clip the rest out of the way because this is gonna be our guide for creating our layers on the side and that butterfly swoopy wing effect. And so what we're going to be doing is, instead of just pulling this straight forward, we're going to be coming in at soft diagonals. And as I take my section, I am going to clip the rest of this hair out of the way just so it stays nice and clean. So what we're going to be doing, I have my guide here. This is going to come out. And like we were doing our layers in the back where we're holding our hands at an angle, I'm gonna be doing the same thing. So we're coming forward, but again, we have this diagonal line here, and we're basically, you want your position of your hands to be similar as that angle. So we're coming up, and I see my guide down here, that hair has fallen, and I see my top guide here, and you're just gonna connect the two. We're gonna take our next section, again, sticking with that diagonal. Clip this hair out of the way. Everything is coming forward. We're grabbing our guide again, combing that hair straight forward. We're gonna angle up just slightly, and then you're gonna have your fingers at an angle like that back angle and cut. And then again, because we're bringing everything forward, you are gonna run out of hair to cut at some point. Come up, we have just this little guy here, and these hairs aren't even gonna come. See if he meets the front. Oh, just barely. So what that has done is create a little bit more shape around the face. And I might, after I get it dry, I might cut these bangs a little bit shorter for a little bit more dramatic effect. But you were able to create a nice face frame, but we still have the basis of that bob look. So really with a butterfly bob, I want you to think of it in terms, the back you would cut and you want it to look like your traditional bob, but in the front, you're gonna cut it much different than a classic bob to create that butterfly look. So I'm gonna come here, I'm gonna let my guide out on this side now. And we're gonna just do the same thing. So you're gonna do a diagonal back, clip this hair out of the way. So you're gonna come forward with the hair. We're twisting our fingers, coming up to that point. And you're just gonna cut that hair in the middle. So your bottom guide will fall out and you will connect it to the top guide. So combing forward, my fingers are still positioned at that angle. We're just on the other side of the head. And cut. So what I like about this is that you are able to get that shape, but again, these side perimeter pieces always fall out, so you keep that nice thick line. You aren't gonna get that whole hole shape, anything like that. So I don't think we'll have any hair here coming out. Barely. So I'm gonna position her back, looking forward. So at this point, before moving into the top, I like to stand in front of the client, but for you guys, I always stand here to try to see, and then I can't see and have to just do it anyways, but I will bring the hair forward to connect the points, see if anything is off, and then I will correct that before moving into our top layer. So I'm gonna check that really fast. So I think I have a little bit more length on this side, and I'm just gonna bring that up just a little bit. Okay, so that's looking good. So now what we're going to do is we are gonna start connecting our top layers in. So this mannequin hair dries crazy fast, so I'm gonna re-spritz it down really fast, quickly. So now we have all this length here that we've got to cut into to blend, because if we let it down, it's just going to be way too long and not look right and ruin our masterpiece. So we're going to come back to thinking of these front pieces, and all we're going to be doing is everything's going to be coming up and we're going to be creating that angle. So we're going to connect it to what this length is, and we're gonna blend that into the back layers. But first, I'm gonna separate this and create our first guide. And everything is gonna be coming back up to the center of the head. I'm gonna lower her a little bit. So we're at the center of the head here. And this is probably a little thicker than I prefer. That's better. So we're going to be coming straight up. And again, this top piece here is our guide, but I'm actually gonna start in the back. So I'm gonna grab my back layer here. We're gonna come up and I'm angling up and we are just blending in with that back layer. So you guys probably didn't see that well enough. I've got my back section here of hair. We're combing it up and we are twisting our hands to create an angle and cut. So you're keeping an angle with your fingers as you cut. I'm gonna grab from our next front piece, same thing, come up, angled, cut. We're removing a lot more length. And now to connect it to this front, I'm actually gonna comb it forward. And I'm gonna come in from my shorter bang piece. Keep your hands at an angle and you're just going to cut. We're just angled slightly and we've angled up from that shorter piece to meet here in the middle. And you almost have like this nice little triangle point going up this way and then it goes back down. So we're gonna take our next guide and we're just coming back to the middle of the head here. Okay, so we're gonna come in back here. We're over directing to the center, twisting up, and you'll be able to see your guide and you're just gonna follow that guide. Now you're gonna start angling forward to meet that bang. And it's so easy because you already have that guide set and you just follow through. It's really not complicated. Don't overthink it. Take appropriate size sections as always, and you'll be fine. Probably have a little bit more right here. And then you'll know when you run out of hair, like don't be afraid of like, oh my gosh, I came too far down on the sides, because you're not gonna have anything to cut because you're over directing to that middle. So we've got this last side of our top layer to cut. I'm gonna turn her this way so you guys can get multiple angles, hopefully. And we're just gonna continue following through. So we're coming back again to center. You're connecting it with the back. So angling up, cut, come around, you'll cut, and then as you get to the front, you're gonna change that angle. And again, you'll see your guide. All that hair, gone. And this will probably be our last piece for the sides. Barely anything. Okay, I'm gonna spritz her first. So what I'm gonna do now is come back to the center part here. And so what we're gonna do is just go through lightly and sort of cross-check our layers before I dry it to make sure everything is blending in nicely. So we're combing straight down, and all I'm gonna do is just check in basically the face framing area to make sure that it is blending fine. So I'm gonna comb down sort of how you would like for a regular face frame, and just clean up any maybe little baby hairs that are poking out. And because you've already like cut this, you don't have to do this like in multiple sections. You can just comb the hair straight down and take a peek. There wasn't really much at all. Just this little guy hanging out here. And you do the same on the other side. Just coming straight down, follow that angle. We've got a rogue hair here hanging out. And that's good. So I want to bring up her bang. I feel like it's a little long. I feel like we're not gonna get a cool swoop. So I'm just gonna adjust that slightly, but only in the center. I kind of want to make it almost slightly disconnected. So I'm just gonna come back into that original parting here where we were at the arch of the brow. And we're just gonna lightly bring it up. Nothing wild. I'm gonna come into that center point. We're gonna wide side of the comb, and I'm just gonna cut. So same movements as before when we were cutting our guide. I'm gonna bring it down, take a look. And then I'm gonna leave it for now. When it's dry, if I need to blend more, I will. So I'm going to blow her out kind of smooth, but also with some body. All I'm gonna use is Redken's Big Blowout. This is a good heat protectant. I always tell people it doesn't create volume, so don't think that it does. Mannequin hair is so easy to get volume, but it is a good heat protectant, and it's just a nice overall blow dry gel more so for shaping the hair, but it doesn't provide like a ton of volume for the name being Big Blowout. So after I get her dry, I'm probably gonna texturize to create lots of shape and more movement and see how the layers are blending and if we need to tweak or blend anything in. Okay, she's layered. She's layered and I'm liking it. We need to tweak though. Sometimes when you do the over directing in the back with the bob, you can tend to get a little like heavy weight lines in here, which I don't live for, nor do I let any of my clients leave with this. And it's a very easy fix. Part of me wanted to tweak it during her blow dry, but I was like, nope, this is my job to show you guys how you can fix things like this. Because yes, if a client left with that, they're gonna be like, what the heck did my stylist do to me? So let me lower her a little. Yes, I think you guys can see that better now. In here, this just needs some soft blending. So you can either come in, scissor over comb or do it, but first I'm gonna start with my thinning shears, and we're just gonna come in because I'm gonna use these to create a little bit more layers and texture through here. So I think it's just easier to come in. So you're just gonna grab where you see the hair, and you're literally just going to, almost like you're point cutting, but with your texturizing shears, just to soften that up first, because a lot of times it's just excess weight. That is one thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing the over directing layers all to one side. You are creating a lot of weight right in here, so even the thinnest hair is going to look a little bit heavy and maybe bulky, that you would have to come in and cut into it a little bit more. If somebody had naturally like really thin hair, I would not use texturizing shears, I would just point cut. But that's something to keep in mind when you're doing it. But I like to remove the weight first to soften it up, and I can still see right in here. So I'm gonna come in back with my regular shears. These are my shark fin shears, and we're just gonna do scissor over comb, and right there, it just wants to hang out. And I'm just gonna cut into this a little bit to soften that up. Sometimes too, depending on how your color is, when you do a bob haircut, If you have like heavy highlights and lowlights and it's not so solid, it can tend to look a little spotty. So usually with clients that maybe are full foil, I opt to, from the occipital bone down, I will just do what their root color is to keep it more blended, because otherwise you get cheetah spots is what they remind me of. That's what I used to call them back in the day. And then we're heavy here on this side. So coming back to my thinning shears, and we're just softening that up. And that is looking better. Now what I want to do is I want to add a little bit more textured layers, I should say. I don't want to create necessarily like a straight up layer, but I am going to use my thinning shears for this. This is where I say that this cut is a little bit better for somebody who has naturally thicker hair. So I'm just going to come in, and starting from the bottom, I'm just going to take my shears, thinning shears, do not use your regular shears for this, and we're just going to come in and go up like it's a long layer. So what this does is it just creates extra texture. It creates almost a layer in and of itself because you are cutting into the hair a little bit. So when somebody goes to either wave their hair or use like texture paste or sprays, you're gonna have a lot more movement throughout the hair. But if somebody with fine, thin hair, you would not need to do this step at all. Like, don't even attempt it. So this is still driving me nuts, and I think I need to just like scissor over comb and cut it a little shorter on the bottom part is what's doing it. And then I want to just add a little more layer, not so much a layer, but like soft point cutting. I don't want to texturize through the sides too much because that's how you're going to end up getting like a hole and taking out way too much weight. So when I get into that ear region in here, I will opt to use my regular shears and just softly point cut in to add a little extra shape. All right, but I'm happy with how it came out. I kind of want to cut the bangs shorter, but at the same time, I think for now I'm gonna leave it. And I wanna hear from you guys in the comments if you think I should have done the bangs a little shorter, just like in this centerpiece, you know? Just to swoop them a little tiny bit more. I'd like to hear your thoughts because I wanna do it, if I should leave them or cut them. So I'm just gonna finish off putting a little texture paste in her hair to kind of fluff her up some, and we will get you guys out of here. All right, here we have our finished and final look. I love it. You can never go wrong with the butterfly and a bob combined. We have lots of movement right in that front area with those bangs swooping in, creating a little bit of a disconnect, but it flows really nice. And then through the sides, we have all that texture and movement that we created doing our stationary guide by over directing everything to the top of that head and forward. And then through the back, we have that nice classic bob look with a little bit of stacking to create a little bit more angle going into the sides. It just came together really nice. I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.